UN Security Council revives Palestine bid for full membership. Hong Kong customs make largest gold smuggling bust. Hello, good afternoon. You're watching World Today with me, Shuhaida Arifin. The United Nations Security Council will decide this month on Palestine's bid for full UN membership as the Gaza war rages on into its 7th month. The Council's move was described as historic by the Palestinians, but angrily denounced by Israel.
The Security Council will now begin its consideration of Item 2 on the agenda. In a letter dated 2nd April 2024, addressed to the Secretary-General, the Permanent Observer of the Observer State of Palestine referred to the application of the State of Palestine for membership in the United Nations contained in document S/2011/592. dated 23rd September 2011, and requested that renewed consideration be given to that application by the Security Council during the month of April 2024.
The Security Council members, through an ad hoc committee on new membership, started the review process after the Palestinians last week relaunched their formal 2011 bid. Any request to become a UN member state must first pass through the Security Council and then be endorsed by the General Assembly. The Palestinians, who have had observer status at the world body since 2012, have lobbied for years to gain full membership, which would amount to recognition of Palestinian statehood. Hamas is studying a proposal for a truce and hostage prisoner swap after talks in Cairo. As Israel's defense minister said, it is the right time for a deal 6 months into the Gaza war. Israel is under growing international pressure to agree a ceasefire, including from its top ally and arms supplier, the United States, and faces mounting calls to refrain from a threatened offensive against the teeming southern Gaza city of Rafah. Late Monday, a Hamas source close to the negotiations said the group was reviewing a proposal that would see a 6-week truce and Israeli women and child hostages freed in exchange for up to 900 Palestinian prisoners. The source said the first phase would also involve the return of displaced Palestinian civilians to northern Gaza and the delivery of 400 to 500 trucks of food aid daily to the territory where the United Nations has warned of imminent famine. Amid the negotiations, however, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said a date had been set for sending troops into Rafah city. The prospect of a Rafah invasion has alarmed world leaders and humanitarians. After Netanyahu's comment, the U.S. State Department reiterated that an invasion would have an enormously harmful effect on civilians and ultimately Israeli security. The leaders of France, Egypt and Jordan also warned Israel the Rafah offensive would have dangerous consequences. Now, in other development, displaced people in central Gaza received aid from the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency, UNRWA, ahead of Eid al-Fitr celebrations. Agency staff distributed urgent provisions, including tin food to people sheltering in the school complex in Deir al-Balah, as Muslims globally prepare a meal to mark the end of the holy fasting month of Ramadan. However, those receiving aid boxes at the camp told Reuters it hasn't been enough and has been almost 2 months since the last delivery of food aid, which has seen children surviving on barely 2 meals a day.
للمساعدات اللي بنتلقاها في المدارس ما فيش مساعدات. إلنا الحين يمكن تقربنا على الشهرين ما خدناش إلا يمكن 4 بصلات كلهم كيلو بصل، وأخذنا كل نفر أخذنا بيضة اللي أخذناهن ما فيش شيء، ولا أخذنا كراتين ولا أخذنا أي مساعدة. هي لسه اليوم طلعوا لسه الكراتين، لسه هي الأسماء بنزلوا فيها.
كلها بتكفيش، حتى مواد تنظيف. احنا عايشين في منطقة كلها أمراض. مواد تنظيف ما بنستلم ابدا، ما استلمناش ابدا مواد تنظيف اطلاقا. لا صابونه لا كلور لا مطهر ولا اي حاجه من هذا النوع.
Israel has long accused UNRWA of being close to Hamas and has sought to have it disbanded. The agency has always rejected the accusation and has said Israel has been putting obstacles into aid coming into Gaza. On Friday, it welcomed the reopening of the Erez crossing into northern Gaza and the temporary use of Ashut port in southern Israel following U.S. demands to increase humanitarian aid supplies into Gaza, but said Israel needs to do more. In Gaza City, Palestinian forensic and civil defense workers recovered human remains from the grounds of Al-Shifa Hospital, Gaza's largest hospital.
هناك تحديات في داخل قطاع غزة، لا يوجد لدينا أي طبيب شرعي ولا يوجد لدينا أي جهات لديها خبرة في توثيق جرائم الاحتلال، نحن نحاول أن نستعين بخبرة منظمة الصحة العالمية وبخبرة الأوتشا في توثيق هذه الجريمة التي تمت في داخل مجمع الشفاء الطبي.
A UN team was also present as Palestinian civil defense recovered human remains from the hospital grounds. The World Health Organization described the hospital as an empty shell with human graves after Israeli forces withdrew. Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian inaugurated a new site for Iranian consular services in the Syrian capital of Damascus after visiting the damaged site where the previous consulate was flattened in an Israeli airstrike on 1st April. The strike, which flattened the consular building adjacent to Iran's embassy and killed 7 Iranian military officers, including 2 senior commanders, was an escalation of Israeli attacks on Iranian interests in Syria alongside the Gaza war. It drew condemnations from the United Nations and European Union for striking diplomatic premises, and Iran has vowed revenge. Syria's Foreign Minister Faisal Mekdad attended the opening of the new consular building alongside Amir-Abdollahian, who's concluding a regional tour in Syria.
هذا يعني أن هذه القضايا لا يمكن أن تعالج إعلاميا إلا في الوقت المناسب. لذلك أعيد التأكيد على أن سوريا تقف بشكل حازم مع المقاومة وتدعم كل قوى المقاومة عربيا وفلسطينيا.
Australia, Britain and the United States say they were considering cooperating with Japan on the AUKUS Security Pact, setting the scene as the US president prepares to meet his Japanese counterpart. In a statement, AUKUS partners said Japan's strengths and close partnerships with the countries involved meant it was an obvious ally in the project. The statement said since the inception of AUKUS, the related nations have been clear in what they intend to engage others in Pillar 2 projects. AUKUS was established in 2021 and has 2 main practical goals, with Pillar 1 aims to provide Australia with a fleet of nuclear-powered attack submarines. Pillar 2 focuses on developing advanced warfighting capabilities such as artificial intelligence, undersea drones and hypersonic missiles. The statement said in seeking future opportunities, the group would consider technological innovation, financing, industrial strengths and the ability to adequately protect sensitive data and information. Now, a statement comes as Prime Minister Fumio Kishida will meet U.S. President Joe Biden at a summit on Wednesday, the first state visit in nearly a decade. Hong Kong Customs made its biggest gold smuggling bust in its history, seizing 146 kilograms of the precious metal disguised as air compressor parts at the city's international airport. Melted and molded into parts like motor cars, screws and gears, the smuggled gold was intercepted last month in 2 air compressors that were sent by air from Hong Kong to Japan and estimated to be worth $10.7 million. Smuggled gold in Hong Kong used to be detected mostly at land checkpoints along the border of Hong Kong and mainland China, where inspections of cross-border trucks would lead to the discovery of gold stubs and the arrest of truck drivers. Now, in the latest case, the syndicate racked their brains to make use of the space and structure of the air compressor to hide the gold. But the texture and the extraordinary heaviness of the compressors roused the suspicion of the Customs Department's inspectors. Investigations showed that the syndicate tried to smuggle the gold in order to evade taxes in Japan. The Customs Department said one man aged 31 was arrested and released on bail, adding that more arrests could be made. More than 100 people died after a ferry boat sank off the northern coast of Mozambique, and almost 20 others were still missing. An official from the country's Maritime Transport Institute said the vessel carrying 130 passengers was an overloaded fishing boat and was not licensed to transport people. An administrator of the institute said the boat was ferrying people from Luga in Mapula province to Mozambique Island, adding that initial reports indicated that it was hit by a tidal wave. The Office of the Secretary of State of Nampula Province said in a statement that the passengers were reportedly fleeing a cholera outbreak, adding that 10 people had been rescued and nearly 20 others were still missing. President Philip Nyusi said he was saddened by the tragedy and directed the Southern African nation's transport minister to visit the island for investigation. Mozambique and other countries in Southern Africa have been battling cholera outbreaks since last year. Mozambican government data showed the country has recorded 15,051 cases of cholera since October, resulting in 32 deaths. As of Sunday, Nampula province had recorded 5,084 cases and 12 deaths. At least 12 people were killed in Indonesia when a car crashed into a bus and another car on a busy highway as people traveled to celebrate Aidilfitri with families. Chief Development Minister Muhadjir Effendi said 2 people, a coach attendant and a passenger in the bus, were injured in the incident. The accident occurred on a highway in Karawang town of West Java province when a car heading east from Jakarta swerved and crashed into the bus and another vehicle traveling in the opposite direction. The accident occurred as millions of Indonesians are traveling back to their hometowns to celebrate the end of Islamic holy month of Ramadan with their families. More than 800,000 vehicles were recorded leaving Greater Jakarta between 3rd and 6th April. Indonesia's Transportation Ministry projected up to 193.6 million people will travel during the Aidilfitri holiday this year, with some 28.4 million people projected to leave from Greater Jakarta area. Transport accidents are common in Indonesia, a vast archipelago nation where buses, trains and even planes are often old and poorly maintained. Coming up, North America awed by total solar eclipse. Stay with us. Eclipse mania gripped North America as a breathtaking celestial spectacle captivated tens of millions of people, offering a rare blend of scientific interest, commercial opportunity, and daytime partying. The moon's shadow plunged the Pacific coast of Mexico into total darkness at 11:07 a.m. local time, then swept across the United States at supersonic speed, returning to the ocean over Canada's Atlantic coast just under an hour and a half after landfall. Festival, viewing parties, and even mass weddings took place along the eclipse's path of totality, where the sun's corona glowed from behind the moon in a display that left crowds awestruck. According to NASA, the path of totality was 185 kilometers wide and home to nearly 32 million Americans, with an additional 150 million living less than 321 kilometers from the strip. The last remaining bit of brilliant sunlight before totality creates a diamond ring effect, with a single bright spot glaring from one side of the lunar shadow, while the sun's corona still encircles the rest of the moon. It was the first total eclipse to sweep across the largest swathe of North America since 2017, and will be the last one visible from the contiguous United States until 2044. Dressed in red raincoats and big yellow suns, hundreds of people gathered together on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls to break a Guinness World Record for a gathering of people dressed as the sun. 309 people gathered on the Niagara Falls ship to break the record, originally set in 2020 by 287 participants of China Life Insurance Company Limited in Guangzhou, China. The record was set to coincide with the first total solar eclipse to grace North America in 7 years that drew millions of sky watchers gazing upward for the start of the celestial display, at least partially visible across most of the continent. Russia has warned of unprecedented flooding over the next 48 hours as locals in the city partially submerged by rising waters took to the streets in rare protest at the authorities' handling of the crisis. Fast-melting ice and torrential rain have caused major rivers, the Ural and Tobol, near the Russian border with Kazakhstan, to overflow, with officials warning the floodwaters are set to rise dangerously high over the next 48 hours. Dozens of protesters in the city of Osk, which was submerged in meters of floodwater over the weekend after a dam burst, protested against the government's weak response in a rare show of dissent in Russia. The protesters were demanding more financial help and were angry that a dam designed to protect the city had burst. In a compensation scheme published over the weekend, the regional government said it would pay up to $1,100 per person for household items completely destroyed in the floods. More cities, including the regional hub of Orenburg, with a population of 550,000, were bracing for a surge in water levels over the coming days. An exceptional dust cloud from the Sahara is choking parts of Europe, causing poor air quality and coating windows and cars in grime. Copernicus Atmosphere Monitoring Services said the latest plume, the third of its kind in recent weeks, was bringing hazy conditions to southern Europe and would sweep northward as far as Scandinavia. Senior scientist at Copernicus, Mark Barrington, said the latest event was related to a weather pattern that has brought warmer weather to parts of Europe in recent days. He said while it is not unusual for Saharan dust plumes to reach Europe, there has been an increase in the intensity and frequency of such episodes in recent years, which could potentially attribute it to changes in atmospheric circulation patterns. Now, this latest episode has caused air quality to deteriorate in several countries. The European Union's safe threshold for concentrations of PM10 has already been exceeded in some locations. Now, the worst affected was the Iberian Peninsula in Spain, but lesser air pollution spikes were also recorded in parts of Switzerland, France, and Germany. The mayor of Colombia's capital, Bogota, has announced water restrictions as reservoir in the sprawling Andean Sea hit critical levels. Mayor Carlos Fernando Galan said 2 key reservoirs supplying the city were at the lowest level since the mid-1980s due to a lack of rain attributed to the El Niño climate phenomenon. He announced cuts from Thursday due to the critical levels of the reservoirs from which people draw drinking water from Bogota. The city of 8 million people has been divided into 9 sectors, which will each go 24 hours without water on an assigned day before the cycle repeats itself. And the goal is to reduce household consumption by 11%, and the restrictions will last until water levels improve. Gallen said this is a temporary situation and rain will help to alleviate it, but climate change is a reality that cannot be ignored. A drought and weather conditions exacerbated by El Nino saw Colombia start the year with scorching temperatures and hundreds of forest fires, including on mountains overlooking Bogota. Jonathan Majors, a fast-rising Hollywood star before domestic violence charges derailed his career, avoided jail and was sentenced to 1 year of domestic violence counseling after being found guilty of attacking his former girlfriend. The sentence was imposed by Justice Michael Gaffey of the State Supreme Court in Manhattan, where Majors was convicted on 18 December of 1 count each of third-degree assault and second-degree harassment, neither a felony against Grace Jabari. Majors had faced up to 1 year in jail, but prosecutors in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office recommended the counseling. He must also continue therapy and stay away from Jabari. The 34-year-old Majors rose to fame by starring in 2019 film The Last Black Man in San Francisco, and later gained plaudits for his work in the blockbuster Creed 3 and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Up next in sport, Augie Aliassime wins Monte Carlo opener to book Alcaraz clash. Nori was beaten in straight sets by 15 seed Karen Khachanov in the first round of the Monte Carlo Masters. Nori fought hard in the match, lasting 2 hours and 25 minutes, but went down 5-7, 6-7 to the Russian. Khachanov had his serve broken twice in the opening set and was forced into a tie-break in the second. Nori again broke serve twice in the second and at 6-5 up had 2 break points to win the set, but Khachanov hit back with 3 consecutive aces to hold the serve and fired another 2 aces to take the tie-break with ease. Khachanov will face Argentine Francisco Cerundolo in the second round. Meanwhile, Felix Auger-Aliassime's reward for a straight sets opening round win over Luca Nardi is a showdown with Spanish star Carlos Alcaraz. Auger-Aliassime dismissed Nardi 6-2, 6-3 in a dominant all-round display to claim only his second win in 5 appearances in Monte Carlo. The Canadian was never under pressure, winning 4 straight games from 2-2 in the first set before breaking serve in the 4th game of the second to cruise through in 82 minutes. Miami Open finalist Grigor Dimitrov defeated Monegasque wildcard Valentin Vacheroux 7-5, 6-2 in the first round. Dimitrov dropped his serve in the opening game against Vacheroux but broke back immediately and then again in the 12th game to take the set 7-5. 2 further breaks in the second set sealed the Bulgarians' win in 90 minutes, and the 9th seed will next face Matteo Berrettini or Miomir Kecmanovic. Bayern Munich coach Thomas Tuchel believes his side's extensive experience in the Champions League could give them the edges as they prepare to face Arsenal in the quarter-finals. Bayern, who have won the European Cup 6 times, visit the Gunners in the first leg clash early tomorrow. Arsenal's best showing in the elite competition was reaching the 2006 final.
Im einzelnen Spiel. Sie dominieren im Moment die schwierigste Liga in der Welt und das spricht für sich. Es ist nur so, dass wir natürlich auch um unsere Stärken wissen, dass wir auch darum wissen, wie wir ihnen wehtun wollen. Wir wissen, dass Champions League trotzdem ein Wettbewerb ist, in dem wir mehr Erfahrung haben als Arsenal über die Historie und auch über die vergangenen Jahre, die letzten 4 Jahre, die letzten 5 Jahre.
History favours Bayern as this marks the 5th Champions League clash in the knockout stages between the two teams, with the Germans prevailing on all 4 previous occasions. Tuchel considered Bayern's overall form this season deserved criticism after some lackluster displays. They are 16 points adrift of leaders Bayer Leverkusen in the Bundesliga and were dumped out of the German Cup by third-tier Saarbrücken. Mikel Arteta, meanwhile, has challenged Arsenal to prove their wretched Champions League record against Bayern is ancient history, as the Gunners look to seize their special opportunity to reach the semi-finals.
Top team. I'm a big fan, big admirer of Thomas. His teams, the way they settle, the way they play, what they transmit. I have learned a lot about him. And looking at Bayern, and when you analyze him deeply, you see why they are a top team. So we have prepared very well, and we have to take our game and take our game where we want it. And if we do that, we'll have a chance to win.
Arsenal have not made the Champions League semi-finals since 2009 and will be playing in the last 8 for the first time since 2010. While Bayern are well below their usual standards this term, Arteta is relishing the opportunity to face the 6-time European champions. Manchester City should not expect a repeat of their dominant win over Real Madrid last season when they meet in the Champions League quarter-finals. Holders City beat visitors Real 4-0 last May to win their semi-final tie 5-1 on aggregate, but Pep Guardiola said Carlo Ancelotti's team would present a different challenge as they prepare for tomorrow's first leg at the Santiago Bernabeu.
2 seasons ago, we were out for the last minutes here. Last season, we won. Looks like a classic, between them and ourselves in the last years, but no, I don't have the feeling that this is where it is last season. So he is right, the same managers, no long time ago, but new players they have new players, so completely different games, and of course we have a little advantage for the fact the second leg is at home, like we feel strong, we are incredibly confident, but we have to play first 90 minutes here, and here.
Guardiola said defender Josko Vardiol had come with the squad to the Spanish capital but was a doubt for the clash, while injured duo Kyle Walker and Nathan Ake did not travel. City midfielder Rodri said winning the Champions League last season could make the team calmer on a high-tension European night.
Of course, we learn from the past, we learn from when we lose and also when you win. And I think having both experience in overall, I think we are a completely more mature team than the first time we faced them. I remember here in Bernabeu, so it gives us confidence.
And we reach the end of today's bulletin. A recap of our top story today. UN Security Council revives Palestine's bid for full membership. Do join us again tonight at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and Saluran Berita RTM for more news. From river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm Shuhaida Arifin. Thank you for watching.